Yeah, so the horse I'm going to show at the WEG this year, we've had, I bought him 7 years ago for a client. We've owned him for a couple of years now. I bought him for a client. I showed him a bit. I think we sold him to another client. And then a couple of years ago, that lady that owned him contacted us and said, I've got to sell Petey. Do you know anybody who might want to buy him? And I said, yeah, my wife wants to buy him. I didn't even ask her, but we love that horse. He's just a cool horse. And so I've had him, I've got quite a bit of history with the horse. He's a very, very sensitive, timid sort of a horse, which suits me, especially where I'm at these days, because I really don't have to do much to him to prepare him to show. We don't do running manoeuvres on him at home. He's kind of a long sort of a horse, and the thing that I used to struggle with showing him was him getting flat, just not staying right there. And like you'd start running circles, and by the time you'd run 2 circles and you went to slow down, he was kind of a bit strung out, so he didn't slow down as good as he could have done. Or if you had to change leads from fast circle to fast or fast to slow, he was just not right hooked right there. Same thing running to stops. He'd flatten out running to stops. So he could do all the manoeuvres really good, but it was just holding himself together. And I mentioned before, I'm a bit of a weirdo. I've been outside the box thinker, and I get to present at a lot of horse expos around the world. And sometimes in the night show, they'll have like a discipline swap, And so a number of years ago in Australia, I got to swap with a dressage rider. And so I got to ride this Grand Prix dressage horse, and he was great to ride. And I said to the trainer afterwards, I said, everything feels the same as our reiners. Like your hand and your leg and your seat all does exactly the same thing. But the difference being was, so we had like 7 minutes to go in this colossal impact with 4,000 or 5,000 people to show our sport individually, our discipline individually. And then at intermission, we went outside and we all got to swap, get on the other horse, ride it around for 5 minutes, and then come in and take a lesson in a discipline you don't do in front of 4,000 or 5,000 people, which was cool. But when I got on that horse outside, he was a big, tall horse, about 17 hands. So I hopped on him and asked him to walk. He didn't walk. He went, and he rose up underneath me, and then he walked. And then when I asked him to trot, he didn't trot. He went, and then he trotted. And for a reiner, the feeling you have when you're running a horse to a stop, and it's like, if I pull the trigger right now, it's going to be perfect. That running uphill, everything's where it's supposed to be feeling, that you spend a lot of time working on trying to get the horse to get to that point. This horse felt like that at the walk and at the trot. Like, I could stop right now. Like, he just feels like... And so after I did the whole thing, and I was talking to the guy later on, he ended up being on the World Equestrian Game team with us in 2010, because this was in Australia. He's an Australian. I said, okay, I get how to get all the, the hand, the leg, the seat, all that stuff. That felt just like our horses, but how do you get that? And he said, he's pretty Australian, so he said, just a lot of sharp upward and downward transitions. And so it kind of took me down a bit of a rabbit hole working with that stuff with the reiners. And, it made a huge difference. But in the last few years, I've really gotten into learning more of what are basic dressage moves that we don't necessarily do with the reiners. And probably the one for me that's the most amazing one is the shoulder in. If you can do a correct shoulder in on a horse, that front end comes up, that hind end goes underneath them, everything's soft. It's like for me, it's the one thing they've got to be able to do. So that horse out there, I mostly do dressage type stuff with him. Keep him legged up, keep him, he's not a horse you can just keep legged up as in turn him loose and trot him around, because he will get strung out. And then if you let him do that for a month, then you go to get back on him, you've got to put it all back together. So he needs to stay together, but he doesn't need to work on the reining moves. And so I basically do a lot of dressage stuff with him on contact.